our studio. We're now joined by Pat Smith, Pat Smith Radio, WJOX in Birmingham, three-man front, and he joins us. What's the mood like, Pat, in Birmingham, Alabama today?
Well, I'll tell you, we did about 8 hours live radio last night as we were trying to console the fans. We were trying to look ahead. A lot of people were very shocked. Although he's 72 years old, it was a surprise to a lot of people that Nick Saban was going to step down. They had another great recruiting class. You get to the national semifinal game. Alabama will be a preseason top 5 team next year, expanded playoff with the expanded SEC next year. Things look good. But at the end of the day, we all saw this day coming. The last few years definitely has been a little bit different. And there's just been this constant drumbeat way in the distance this year. That it just seemed a little bit different, guys. And so much at 4 o'clock yesterday, Nick Saban decided now was the time for him to step back and get on with the next chapter of his life.
Pat, what do you feel is because you're not going to just make another Nick Saban. Like, you can't just go and find a guy who has those exact same qualities. So what does Alabama want in the next coach, especially since it's apparently not going to be Dan Lanning? And that's the only one we know for absolute certain. And maybe Mike Norvell looks a little less likely after the tweet about a recruit today, but who even knows?
And the irony part of that tweet is that it's a player from Alabama that they just got out of the transfer portal. That is the part that is going to be very interesting to the fans, because the fans have become very spoiled. I've been covering this program for a long time, and the 18 years before Nick Saban got there was many peaks and valleys. It was up and down. And yeah, they won the national championship in 1992. They won a couple SEC titles in the 90s, but that program was pretty much a wasteland. The program in regards to the facilities was way behind probably 5 or 6 other schools in the SEC. And that's why Nick Saban ultimately came to Alabama, because he knew that he could build it the way that he wanted it to be built. He told the Big Cat alumni, you need to stay out of the football office. This is my program, and if you don't like it, I'm not coming from Miami to Tuscaloosa. So with that being said, this program is obviously in the upper echelon in college football, but there's not going to be another Nick Saban. I think for fans to think that it's going to be an automatic 12-win season every year, they better get ready, because parity in college football, as you guys know and talk about it almost every day, it's here. And the transfer portal and the NIL has definitely leveled the playing field. And Alabama in the SEC is behind some folks in regards to NIL and the way that they operate in the portal. So whoever is the next coach, it's going to be completely different. But the fans better get ready, because there will never be another Nick Saban.
Pat, what are your expectations? I guess, what have you heard? What is the talk about Saban, and will he continue to be around Tuscaloosa? Is he going to maintain an office there? Kind of what will still be his involvement moving forward? And there's a lot of rumblings about media opportunities for him. That seems like a College Game Day spot would be an absolute layup for him. What are your thoughts on a post-coaching media career for Coach Saban?
I think you're right. It is going to be a slam dunk. And the reason why is because in 2013, after Alabama had lost in the famous Kick Six game down on the plains of Auburn, he met with Nick Khan, who is now the president of WWE. He at that time was representing Nick Saban on the television side. Jimmy Sexton represents Nick, obviously on the field, but all the commercials and the other publicity things that Nick Saban does, he was represented at the time by Nick Khan. Well, Nick was obviously, he represented a lot of people on ESPN Game Day. And there was a deal in place for him in 2013 to step aside from coaching and be an active member of College Game Day back in 2013. Ultimately, he decided his juices still wanted to coach. And obviously, he had a few more national championships left in him at Alabama. So he decided to come back to the capstone and coach until yesterday at 4 o'clock when he announced it to the team. So I think that goes without saying. He will do something with ESPN. I'm not sure that he will be on every ESPN Game Day, but he will have a heavy involvement now that the SEC package is completely going over to Disney and ABC. You will see Nick Saban. I don't think you'll see him in the booth, but you'll see plenty of his analytics and things that he will do on the weekends, trying to break down football games. But as far as the next role at Alabama, you know, he made $11.4 million. He had a contract through 2029 in Tuscaloosa. He signed a new 8-year deal last season. So the general feeling is that he and Terry, they bought the big house down in Jupiter, Florida for about $17 million in the off season. They will spend the majority of their time there. They're heavily involved in Nick's Kids, with the charitable organization in Tuscaloosa. They're building a new center there in T-Town. So they will be back and forth to Tuscaloosa. I think he will have a role in the university, in the athletic department, sort of like Bob Stoops, but I know Bob Stoops obviously still lives, I believe, in the Norman or Oklahoma City area. But I think ultimately Nick will spend most of his time in Florida, come back to Tuscaloosa, but he'll just be a phone call away. But he will not be an everyday person in the athletic department. He will get a paycheck, but it definitely won't be the 11.4 he made last year.
I saw a note. I don't know if it was Reese Davis or whoever put it up, that he already has told his team that he's going to have an office inside Bryant-Denny, as you mentioned, and that he can still like bark at them from where he's going to be, which is kind of cute in a way. In a way, will a Jimmy Sexton client be the next head coach at Alabama?
Well, tell me what coach is not represented by Jimmy Sexton.
I know.
I mean, Jimmy Sexton was he was there in the Malmore Athletic Building today. Now, whether he was there helping Nick Saban pack up his office, or he was there talking about Kalen DeBoer from Washington, or another one of his clients that he might have in the mix, a Lane Kiffin, Steve Sarkisian, somebody like that. Jimmy represents a lot of them, so it could be a conversation, kind of like going to Walmart, get your groceries, get your oil changed. Maybe that's what Jimmy Sexton was doing in Tuscaloosa, kind of killing two birds with one stone. So I think it's a pretty good idea to think that whoever the next head coach is probably will be a CAA client or someone that Jimmy Sexton represents.
How would Alabama fans feel about Daboll Sweeney?
I will tell you, they were chanting last night. A large portion of students went to the Nick Saban statue outside of Bryant-Denny Stadium, and they started chanting this, guys. I'm not lying to you. We have video of it. It is fans chanting, anyone but Daboll, anyone but Daboll. Daboll, for him to be the favored son and growing up in a suburb of Birmingham and playing wide receiver for the 1992 National Championship team, I guess the bad blood from the two national championships he won and the things that happened against the Alabama Crimson Tide in the past, he is most definitely not one of the people that folks think that needs to even be in the conversation for the job. There's been no buzz whatsoever. He's got a $7.5 million buyout, and you would think that might present an opportunity for Alabama to put him on the board somewhere. But as of right now, guys, his name is absolutely dead in the water in regards to coming back to Alabama.
Pat, I know everybody wants to ask you, all right, who's the next guy to be? When's it going to happen? But what is the level in your mind as far as the sense of urgency goes, knowing the amount of DMs and phone calls and text and words through intermediaries that are probably going on with that roster and that recruiting class right now?
Well, that's the big key. One thing was for sure yesterday afternoon, it was communicated to the team that they were looking at making this a fast process, looking at the next 72 hours. You mentioned it, the transfer portal, Alabama top 5 recruiting class. You got guys going in the portal. The players the veterans of the football team did have a players-only meeting after Nick Saban talked to the team. And basically what I have been told is those players basically said, look, let's let the dust settle a little bit. You got 30 days before you can go into the portal. Let's see who exactly may be coming in to be the next head coach. So don't make any drastic decisions right now. Let this kind of settle out a little bit. So the veteran leadership of the football team definitely stepped up yesterday, trying to make sure that the young guns and the folks that was looking to potentially get into the portal, make sure that they understand, hey, just take it easy. And Nick Saban was on the phone. I was told today, guys, that Saban was on the phone talking to recruits. He was talking to players currently on the roster, trying to ease their mind and tell them everything is going to be fine, guys. Just take a deep breath, kind of relax over the next few days. So Nick Saban, even in retirement, he is still recruiting. It's unbelievable.
Pat, can we go rapid fire here? And I'll just throw out some names and you tell me how fans would feel about them quickly.
Okay, sure.
Okay, Mike Norvell. Lane Kiffin.
They would be excited.
Kalen DeBoer.
They respect what he's done, but it definitely would not win the press conference.
So Of those three, okay, one more. Steve Sarkisian.
Excited through the roof.
So Sark and Lane would be the ones that the fans would want the most if you straw poll them.
Absolutely. And the main reason why is because the success they had in bringing national championships to Alabama and what they did, bringing that exciting style of offense to the Tide. So that's why those two are on top of the list.
Is there anybody in the NFL that is a former college coach that could be involved, or at least somebody of interest?
Well, I've not heard his name, but I'm just throwing this out there. We're just throwing mud up on the wall to see what sticks. Brian Daboll for the New York Jets. And the reason I bring him up, he was the offensive coordinator at Alabama, had a relationship with Nick Saban. It would be ironic, guys, because back in 1982, when Bear Bryant decided to retire, guess where they went? New York Giants. Ray Perkins was tapped as the next head coach to fulfill the Alabama vacancy when the legend Bear Bryant stepped down. Would that not be something if Nick Saban stepped down and they went to the NFL and looked at someone like a Brian Daboll? I'm not saying he's in the mix. That's just a wild name that obviously had a connection to Alabama. The one that the fans really would love more than anything in the world, not too far away from you guys. I know it's a big state, but over in Houston, D'Amico Ryans, who played at Alabama, Bama fans would be over the roof if he decided, hey, mama called, let me go back to Tuscaloosa. I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's perfectly where he is in Houston and potentially, putting that franchise on the road to a Super Bowl in the future. But, yeah, D'Amico Ryans is someone that the Tide fans would absolutely be over the moon about.
Well, what a year he's had with the Texans in the NFL. Incredible to make the playoffs his first year after they've been kind of a mess. On the Sarkisian front, we're on the front. We know that connection there, the obvious connection. Is that yet a no? Do you know yet whether or not? I know that nothing's been publicly put out there like Dan Lanning did. Texas is a place that's hard to leave. They don't usually lose anybody unless they want to. Is that, do you think, like a glimmer of hope, or do you think it's more of an open door than that?
I don't think it's in my opinion, I think he's in the mix. But I think when it's all said and done, he will not leave Austin for Tuscaloosa just because of the fact that they are coming in the SEC. They just beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa. To my knowledge and the people that I've talked to, they have got their ducks in a row much better than Alabama does in regards to the NIL and the way they handle certain things. So I just don't – now, if this was 5 years ago, I think absolutely he is out the door in a heartbeat heading to Tuscaloosa. But because of this day and age and where Texas is, they were in the college football playoff this year, I don't see why he would envision that unless that is his career aspiration to follow Nick Saban. And I've been given no indication that that's what it is, but you just never know with these coaches what ultimately they want to do with their career.
Now, Pat, this is replacing the GOAT. So would there be some coaches you would think that might be a fit that would be like, yeah, no, you don't
want to be the guy that follows the guy. Yeah.
You know what? Because of the nice big buyout that any coach would get, even if you fell flat on your face in 3 years, you would probably have generational wealth. I mean, the reason I bring that up is because Auburn has made a lot of people multimillionaires, from Gus Malzahn to Brian Harsin after 2 years. So, I mean, whoever comes to Alabama, Jimmy Sexton is going to have a sweetheart deal on the back end. So if you want to get rid of them, they're going to get paid. Now, it's not going to be Jimbo Fisher money because Alabama would never sign anybody to that type of deal like they did down in College Station. But I will tell you that I think Alabama is still coveted, even with having to follow in the footsteps of Nick Saban. Keep in mind, with that expanded college football playoff next year, I think the avenue for an SEC team, even with 2 or 3 losses, I think it's an easier path moving forward. And so you might not have to go 11-1 and get to the SEC championship game. I mean, you might find yourself with a 9-3 record and you're in a conversation based on your record. So I think it's a new day and age. I don't think that that's going to play a lot into it in regards to trying to follow the GOAT with this unrealistic expectation.
Pat, if you don't mind, like in a minute, do you feel like Nick Saban will have a huge influence on who does replace him?
I think over the last couple of years, guys, I think that he and Greg Byrne have a great relationship. I think that this conversation has been had probably multiple times. I think Greg Byrne, that list of names that I've been told that he's always had in his top drawer of his desk there at the Malmore or the Athletic Center, I think that list helped be compiled by Nick Saban. Do I think Nick Saban said, you need to go this guy, this guy, this guy? But I most definitely think that Greg Byrne has got the input of Nick Saban of this guy or that guy. Hey, what do you think about this fella, or whatever the case may be, to get his input so that whatever short list he came up with before he started the legwork of trying to get with agents and try to figure stuff out, I think he probably had a kind of a soft blessing from Nick Saban what direction they were going in.
Pat, you've done a great job. The videos you put up of him arriving today, of leaving today, of Sexton today, and then also Craig's the one that gave me the heads up last night that you and Cole were doing an emergency show, which I get that.
We were.
Thank you so much for your time. We'll try to check back in with you again once a decision is made, if that's okay.
Hey, guys, always a pleasure. A big fan of your work. Best to you guys.
And you too. Pat Smith, WJOX in Birmingham, and also Three Man Front.